Okay.
All right, so welcome everybody. My name is Chris Price. I work for the SUNY Center for Professional Development. I'm also on the FACT2 subcommittee that's sponsoring this webinar series. I'll put the link to the webinar series in the chat in case you'd like to register for others and you haven't registered for any other than this one. But as I just said, I'll say again, the recording link and the slides from today's presentation will be sent to everybody that registered. If you have questions, since we have a lot of folks here signed up, 300 signed up. I see there's 116 right now. If you have questions as we go through, you can put them in the chat and I'll let Robert know. If we have time and it makes sense, I'll follow your lead, Robert, for
Cool.
Letting folks open up their mic and that sort of thing. But I just ask you all to please keep your mic muted during the presentation. All right, I'll turn it over to Robert.
Good morning, everyone. So yeah, generally how I do my presentations is if you have a question, post it in the chat. This is more presentation mode, so I won't be checking the chat too often, but Chris will let me know if something comes in that I need to be mindful of. That being said, there will be opportunity to, pardon me, to play around in GPT if you want to. And GPT is known for giving interesting results sometimes. So I do encourage people to post those. It tries to help us out, but sometimes it misses in interesting ways. So Robert Becker, FACT2 representative, instructional designer for SUNY Broome. Some of you may have been in my sessions before. Before this post, I worked for the CPD and SUNY Online as DLE trainer, working on getting everybody up to speed in Brightspace. So for today, we're going to take a walk. This session is geared towards people who have not played around with AI much, if at all. If you are an advanced user, you may not get much out of this. You might find a little nugget here or there, but I just want you to be aware that this is designed for people who are just starting their journey. All right? So our path for today. We're going to do a little frame of reference, a little introduction. And then in part two, we put GPT specifically to work because AI is it's a large topic, lots of options. And if you're new to it, you're faced with the tyranny of choice, much like using Netflix. There are so many things on there. How do you choose what to watch? You can spend a lot of time surfing. So we're going to narrow our focus. We're going to target ChatGPT. We'll play around with that. That will get you started. There's a lot you can do with it. And then if you choose to expand your journey and personalize it, you can. In part three, we'll continue with that process of pressing the buttons and playing, if you want. But I'll show you some more involved usage. In part two, we're just doing really basic stuff. Part four, we don't press the buttons. We just consider where else can you go with this. And then we'll wrap it up with next steps. Okay, where can you go? Where can you get more information? I'll do a reminder about the FACT2 series and a few other things that are going on. So, cards on the table about myself. So I've been in education, well, my whole adult life, history, music, and now instructional design. Former DLE trainer, I mentioned that. Now, my background with AI, I do not have the degree in AI. Here's my experience. I was raised in a house with AI and its predecessors. One of my older siblings published her PhD thesis from Ohio State in '93 on artificial intelligence. So another sibling of mine was experimenting with existing chess programs and teaching them how to bend the rules. So that's the environment I was raised in. Whenever something new came out, technology-wise, it came into my house, if it was affordable, and we got to tinker with it as kids. So I'm pragmatic about it. I don't think technology or AI is going to answer everything for us at this point, but there's things it can do and things it can't do. And there's things, ways it can make our life easier. So artificial intelligence, like I said, big subject. At its core, it's just a tool. It's a tool in a long line of tools. Yeah, a very powerful one, but consider it just a tool. Take the mystique out of it. And it's just the latest in a long line of knowledge tools. The first three I listed, the abacus, dictionaries, and encyclopedias, ways to hold knowledge for us so that we can reference later. The last three, calculators, computer code, education labs, examples of technology where we put the information in and then it extrapolates for us. And that's where we are with AI. It's just pulling from a lot of information. If you want to see, I mentioned that this has been around for a while. AI has jumped into the public eye just recently. Like just the past few years, we've had this explosion of AI, chat. But there's a long history. The first one made available was 1966, Eliza, named for Eliza Doolittle. And then you may have run across news stories of Deep Blue by IBM that took on different chess masters, Kasparov, and won, right? Dr. Spido from the early 90s. That was made by a company called Sound Blaster. And that one was interesting. When you talk about the trepidation and the reluctance and sometimes the fear that comes with advancements in technology, Dr. Spido is a good one to talk about. So Dr. Spido was a language-based program that was a desktop counselor. And you would enter your problems or talk to it. It would give queries. How do you feel about that? If you swore at it, it would shut down, different interesting things. But when it first came out, there was a fear about it, that it was going to put counselors out of work. Counselors have not gone out of business because we found the limitations, and we will find the limitations in ChatGPT as we go. Alice came out in 95. You may have seen people experimenting with that one. If you follow the news, you may have heard about Tay. Tay is a big one for the wrong reason. Tay was a chatbot created by Microsoft, and it was put into Twitter. And Tay was exposed to the internet and trolls on the internet. And within a day, Tay had echoed what it was hearing, and it became horribly racist. It didn't become, it was echoing the language that it heard. I want you to keep that in mind. When we talk about ChatGPT, we talk about its cutoff points for sources. For example, 3.5, the current free version, its cutoff point for knowledge is material that was on the internet up to January 1st of 2022. If you go to Chat 4, its cutoff is April of last year, April of 23. I have not heard an official statement on why that is. All right. I can only hypothesize, and I will tell you that, as a historian, know your sources. That time, that cutoff point, gives a chance for news to be vetted, for things that fly around the internet to be either supported or proven false. AI given direct access to the internet in real time will be fed a lot of erroneous information. You may have run across Sydney, came out in 2021, Microsoft made, and the one that we're all talking about right now is ChatGPT 3.5, like I said, we're on. So 3 itself was actually a soft launch. We didn't hear much about it. That was actually in 2020. We had other things going on. 3.5 was in 22, and then 4 came out mid of 23. GPT-5 was originally projected to come out end of 23, but it has been put off. We still have to see what that has. There's supposed to be more processing power, more reasoning power, better graphics, video, but we'll see. We'll see what ends up getting released. Just to bring home a different angle of how AI is not new, or it's not this thing that exists separate from our lives. Here's some examples of it in play right now. Siri by Apple uses AI. Alexa by Amazon. If you learn languages on Duolingo, I believe it's Max Pro, has GPT-4 involved. So it analyzes your responses over time and tailors lessons to target your weaknesses to help you out. If you're using Grammarly for your editing, GPT-3 is involved. Khan Academy has Khanmigo. If you're doing images in Canva, well, Magic Design in Canva uses DALL-E, which is OpenAI, the same company that made GPT, and it uses Google Imagine. I mentioned ChatGPT, that's OpenAI. DALL-E, I mentioned OpenAI, and then now we have Gemini, which is Google. The reason I mention these companies, right? So first I mentioned the product because I want you to see that it's, it's already in use. It's already in common use. The reason I mention the corporations or the source material is, again, the historian in me. Know our sources. There are a lot of AIs out there. I found a website last year that at that time had a list of 35,000 things that it considered AI. To what degree are they AI? How powerful are they? Well, I haven't gone through them all. There are a lot of things out there that claim to be AI that are weak AIs because it has become a buzzword. So I wanted to show you the main ones here. There's no need to go off into really, ones that are off the beaten path too much. Experiment with the ones that are from known entities first and go from there. So now what I would like you to do, I'd like to get a sense of, where we're at. So in the chat, if you would not mind giving me a number. So ChatGPT, 0 if you've no experience, 1 if you've tried it once or twice, okay, 2 if you use it repeatedly, 3 on a regular basis. Okay, I'm seeing the range. Oh, I saw 3.5 in there. Cool. Okay, so I'm seeing some 3s come up. So as I mentioned at the start, this one is going to be very foundational. Okay, this initial kickoff session will be foundational. So stay on if you want to get some ideas, food for thought. If not, remember we have 4 more weeks of other topics that are going to go more specific into like use in the classroom or use with students or crafting a syllabus statement. All right. Okay, 3. All right. I was going to say if there's a 3.5 in here, we want to talk. Okay, so okay, yep, just checking the chat. Okay, yep, we're seeing lots of different experiences in here. Excellent, excellent. Okay, so let's get our foundation and then continue our journey from there. So our foundation session for today. For those of you who are new to AI, or if you've been playing with it but haven't really, reflected on it, things to consider. You will find pay and you will find free. Start with free. There's no reason to pay yet until you prove that the free, does not do what you need it to. In GPT, 3.5 is free, 4 is pay. You can do a lot with 3.5. The main limitation I have found is it is limited to roughly 3,000 words if you're going to enter text for it to analyze. If you go with 4, the pay version, you can put roughly twice that much in it. Sorry, I see in the chat, I forgot to mention Hal. Yes. Yeah. So and that brings up a good point. As you play with AI or as you start to address AI, you're going to run across, well, what did we find in historical dealings? And what do we find in sci-fi? Because sci-fi writers have always been ahead of the game in the what-if department. And you will find Isaac Asimov with the 3 laws for robots. You'll find Hal. So strip all that away and realize that we're just playing with a tool here. We got a long way to go before we get to Hal. Oh, Chris, thank you for putting that in the chat. So in the chat, you will find the link to openai.com. That is where ChatGPT 3.5 is housed. So if you want to play along at home, you can go ahead, log on there. Sometimes there's a delay on it. If there are a lot of people logging in or trying to use it at the same time, there will be a delay. If you find that it does not load for you, just try it again in another minute. And If for some reason you cannot get into it at all, and you really want to, remember we're recording this, you'll have access to it, and you can go ahead and tinker when you review the recording. So I mentioned pay and free. Now let's talk about password safety considerations. Okay. Let's think of this like we think of a lot of things on the internet. Do you need the pay? Do you need the free? Who's collecting your data? What am I doing for a password? It is recommended that you do not use passwords that you would use for important data. Okay, your SUNY login. Please don't use information for your SUNY login here. Also, don't use ones for your financial institutions. Okay. Let's see, we have another question in the chat. Any reason to not be playing in Gemini? You can play in other ones if you want. I'm just thinking for people who have not played with AI at all, one common starting point. I've chosen one common starting point that comes up a lot. So if you have another one you're comfortable with and you want to play in there, absolutely go for it. All right. Okay. Oh, pardon me, got a little head there. There we go. I see the chat's moving. I'm not going to be able to answer all those in real time. I will circle back in a minute. So data collection, privacy considerations. GPT collects your searches for the purpose of refining their searches later on, to making more accurate searches. That being said, GPT, like anything, can be hacked. And GPT was hacked about what? Oh, I lost track now. About 6 months ago, I think. So information was taken from them, just like information can be taken from Google, from Yahoo, from Apple, etc. Okay, so consider what you put in there. And again, know your sources. If you're going to use an AI, look into who's its creator. If you're putting information into it, where's it going? I have no problem using the Google one. Google has all my information anyway. All right. It's when you get to smaller parties. I've run into AIs that want to access or give you notes for meetings, but it wants to tie into your calendar. I don't want it to tie into my calendar. So watch out for things like that. Okay. So let's go ahead and part two. But before we do that, let's check. Let's see what we had here. Okay, so Gemini up. When you need to analyze longer text, what is the best way to enter that? That would be two things. One is 4, GPT-4, or you can try Gemini and see if you can put more into it there. Okay, but for GPT, the answer is to use 4, the pay version, where you can put more in. If it is something that could be subdivided, chunked, you could try that instead and do smaller texts and then take the results and combine them. Okay, there is a process involved. It's not a matter of one prompt, great answer. It's a matter of one prompt, refine, refine, refine. Gmail login depends on, what's that connected into? Are you worried about that information getting out? Okay, if you're using Gmail with your campus, well, then, you might want to consider doing something else. Just find a different login, different password, Enhanced tracking protection, I have not used that. No problem there. So let's see, a couple of. Does it save the data I provide? I can find a history of mine. So while it says that it's not saving it, it's not pulling it to use it for something else other than analysis. If you go in, it is still there. And you'll see it when I go to GPT. You'll see a sidebar with past searches on it. So the information is still in there somewhere. Okay, there we go. Okay, excellent. Okay, good chat. Okay, excellent. For those of you who have this information and are sharing it, thank you so much. All right. This, like many other projects, we're here working together. Okay. So let's put it to work. So for those of you who have not used it, now is your chance. Follow that link that Chris put in the chat for us. And I do a warm-up example. For the people who've never touched it before, again, we mentioned the tyranny of choice. Where do you get started when you have something that can do everything, okay, it runs into, you run into that problem of, well, I can do anything, I don't know what to do. Okay, there's a problem that musicians have. If you ask us, what songs do you know? We suddenly blank and we know no songs, even if we've been playing forever. Okay. So something to keep in mind. If you don't know where to go, this is a fun one we did in the office. All right. Basically, there would be, you could do one where it's just like you could use GPT to search for recipes, and then you can get recipes without the long storyline that you find if you do a Chrome search or something. Okay. And then, but what we did in the office was, and you can try this at home, was utilize the food you have on hand in your refrigerator, right? We waste what? 38% of the food we buy in the United States. Okay. So you've got things in your fridge left over. You can go ahead, enter something in, and I'll go ahead and do that now with just some random stuff, and then add or remove, right? And then do variations if you want. Try this instead of that. And you can copy paste out. So I'm going to hop over to GPT. And let's change that share. Okay, I have so many of these. No, let me do that. Let me stop this share for a second and bring that one up. Okay, there we go. All right, and now let's bring it back. There we go. Okay. If you've never worked in GPT, let's take a quick look. So you'll be faced the first time with a page much like this. You'll see a chat box at the bottom where we'll do the most of our work. But along with that, top left, once you've got threads going, you can start a new one here. Okay. Coming down, you'll notice that we have some tie-ins now. Kayak for travel. Canva is now tied directly in, and there's additional GPTs in here. So instead of going out to the internet and looking for AIs to play with, you can come in here and see what might be available that you can use. And all these are tested, were tested in a limited release by OpenAI before they were made available to the general public. New chat, you can see a history of my previous chat, some of them, just random things I looked for, different images to create, what could Kayak do, looking for this, looking for that. Okay, so if you want to find your past searches, you can find them over here. You'll notice that we have the ellipses hidden. You can delete your old chats. You can rename them for sorting, or you could share them if you would like. Okay. So now let's go ahead and let's jump on in. Let's go back to that. And let's create a recipe. And what we had was expired ramen. And then we had like soy, cabbage, beef, and then a few other things. Oh, let's throw it a curveball. Let's go with olives. Let's see what it does with that, and then we'll play around. Okay, so a few things to notice here. I'm happy that it is working quickly today. So first off, I'll tell you this. I've done this multiple times. It gives me different results. Okay, I have two different accounts. I've signed in, given it exactly the same prompt, different results. I've been in the same account, different situations, different results. I would like to point out one of the limitations of AI. I specifically put that this food was expired and it did not catch this. Sometimes it catches it, sometimes it does not. I've had ones that come with this with a recipe, and then at the end it's like, by the way, check your expiration dates. Please don't use expired products. And I've had ones like this where I have to go back, like, wait a minute, what about that expired? And then it'll either suggest something or say, yes, be careful using expired products. You'll also see it adds things in. All right, I might not have garlic around. Now, as we're going through this, I want you to keep this in mind. We're just doing a recipe, but this applies to different situations. You can use this with, well, what happens if you want to build something for a course? Okay, I need to like create a list of important things. Wait a minute, that's, or I need to like do a paper that covers this, 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 and it's wedging other things in there. So things to look out for. Okay, so let's see. Just checking the chat here. Dean, I see you're busy in the chat. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Yes, the question in the chat is, how important is it to have individual threads? Yes, start a new chat when you start a new topic. Okay, it's going to have an interesting time trying to give you what you want anyway. And then if you're combining things, it will get more confusing. Okay, Daniela posted an example in the chat. Beautiful. Thank you for that. Can pose a risk to your health. It's essentially prior towards food safety. However, if the ramen is only slightly past expiration date, has been stored properly, you can still consider using it. Beautiful. And then it goes on. Excellent. Okay, so it gives some general ideas. I'm still not at the point where I trust AI to tell me to use expired food, just like we have learned that you don't want to trust AI in emergency medical situations. It can give false information. Okay. Okay. So hopefully you've been playing around. You can see that example. We're going to go ahead and do other ones. We're not going to ruminate on this too long, but I will point out real quick, if you have not done this before, at the bottom of your search, you have icons. So it'll read it to you. You can regenerate. You can say this response isn't good. The main one here is to copy. Copy it to your clipboard, go into a Google Doc or Microsoft or whatever, and paste it in. And then with anything you take from AI, make edits, make it your own. So, quick question, carbon footprinting of AI. Yeah, it is. Yeah, AI is intensive. I don't have the specifics on it. I'm envisioning it much like Bitcoin, where we have farms devoted to it with massive cooling units and corridors along the outside to further insulation the inside, from the outside. So I do not have data on that, but I'm envisioning something that is energy intensive. Okay. Okay, so let's see. Let's go to another one. So I'm going to come back to the slides. There we go. Okay. So now another one. Okay, and you'll notice what I'm doing here is I'm leaning on the human element of, I have all these things in the fridge, what do I do? It's that sometimes we have a problem getting started with a process. Okay, we could figure out what to do with things if we had time and we had, could fight inertia. But speaking of inertia, okay, email composition. And I'm giving general email composition concept here, but again, think about it in relation to classes or relation to business. So the three main concepts of email that I'm seeing, one is the reluctant email, the one that we don't want to send. We have to, we need to, but it's tough sometimes to just get some traction. The recurring topic email, the boilerplate. If you've been in a position for a long time, you're probably getting used to using the same boilerplate over and over for certain things, be it grading or responses to invitations to meetings or LinkedIn friend requests, different things. The function of ChatGPT lends itself to an alternative to that. Because if you've been at it for a while, that boilerplate starts to get stale. And if you've been at it long enough, well, the same person gets the boilerplate again. So if you use GPT to compose your emails for certain subjects, you'll find that it comes out, like I said, same user, different response. It can get you started, and then you can refine. You can use it for the positive messages. If you want to thank someone and you don't know how to put it into words, you can see it on screen and go, oh, that's a little too much, or okay, that's a little too reserved. The version we're going to do today is the reluctant email, because I feel that is the most useful for me, the one that I know I have to send, but I'm dreading it. Okay. And for today, it's the job rejection letter. You have to email somebody. They put in the time, they did the work, they prepared for the interview, they just weren't right. Good person, you really don't like sending bad news, but you have to. Okay, so if you are playing along, go ahead and try this one, and I'll bring this one up on the screen again. Okay, so I'm going to do a new, and so we're going to have it compose a rejection letter. For Jane admin. And we'll say she went for my job, instructional designer. Instantly gives us, okay, put a letterhead in there. Here's, a good framework for it. Thank you very much for your interest in the instructional design position at Burn. We appreciate your time and effort after careful consideration. So it's saying the things that generally I would say. So it's done a lot of the work for me. So now I can go, okay, that's not how I would say it. Okay, so I would do a little bit something more. Let's personalize it. So let's mention a strong resume and encourage her to apply for other posts. Your resume demonstrated you have a strong background in blah. Enthusiasm for contributing to our team was evident. Should another position become available in the future that aligns with your skills and interests, we would welcome the opportunity to consider your application again. All right. I could have spent, 20 minutes, 30 minutes composing that email and then going back and rephrasing. Now I can go copy, paste it out, put it into a Word document or a Google Doc or Pages if you like Mac. And then from there, make it your own. Okay, so I combined prompt 2 and 3. You'll notice you can do that, right? And I can make this, what happens if we make it less formal? This is where things can get interesting sometimes. Thanks a lot. It starts with, your resume caught our eye, seriously impressive stuff. But hey, don't let this get you down. So this might be one of those times where it goes a little too casual for me. So let's see, I'm just checking the chat. I see it moving. Okay. So you can see quite quickly how we can put this to use without really harnessing the full power of what is the extreme of what we can do with AI. And if you watch the news, that's what keeps coming out. The extremes of it. There's an AI that predicted COVID. There's an AI that is currently translating cuneiform tablets, a backlog of tablets that would take decades for a human to translate. And now AI is going through and translating, and humans can go in and check the work. So very powerful stuff, but here's where we start. Okay, let's continue. Letter recommendation. And we don't have to walk through this one. You get the idea. We're following the same process. We're giving it a prompt. We're seeing the result. We're using it as a way to fight inertia, to get us past our starting point. If you only use AI for that, you're in great shape, okay? You've got a powerful tool that you can use to make your life easier. If you want to go beyond, you can absolutely go beyond. The letter of recommendation is another neat one. I've done this one. this is a great example of when AI or when ChatGPT tries to anticipate what I want, but it goes too far. So I did a letter of recommendation for Jane Admin. Okay. And my first one was the best. The first time I did a letter of recommendation for Jane Admin and then asked it to make the response more casual, I got the like, thanks a lot, like, great to talk to you. Or no, not thanks a lot. No, I'm sorry. That was the back one. Sorry. The recommendation was more like, hey, you really need to work with this person. It was that casual slang. Pardon me. I was thinking ahead because what I really loved was the start of the third paragraph. When it talked about what a pleasure it was to work with Jane, the first sentence was, Jane Admin leaves a trail of fairy dust whenever she enters a room. And I loved it. I couldn't believe that chat threw that out there, but it did. And I'm like, okay, we're not gonna use that one. Okay. So let's see. So I see the chat's moving. Sorry, Andrew, I don't think ChatGPT is going to fire you someday. Okay. Oh, there we go. Nice response, Dean. Yeah, if you don't do anything that AI can't do, yeah. And so far, AI leaves a lot to be desired. I will tell you this, when I first played with AI, I came up with a few things just out of the blue. First is what would happen, I gave it a prompt, what would happen if Woody Woodpecker met Jimi Hendrix? And it came up with a fictitious story and, like, oh, what would this interaction look like? The second thing I gave it was, as a musician, I'm like, what's the greatest guitar solo of all time? Of course, it didn't give me an opinion because it can't. What it said is one of the most popular and frequently cited solos, and Dean, I think you heard this story because I think we talked about this when I was on your campus, was it mentioned Stairway to Heaven. And then I asked, like, okay, well, analyze it for me and start talking about the music theory in it. And if your classroom instructor, I want you to keep this in mind, you know a lot more about your subject than GPT does. It has access to a lot of resources, but it can't synthesize it like you do. And you can trick it. I told it to analyze the first 4 bars and tell me what scale it was, and it gave me a scale. And I'm like, okay, well, what about this scale? I mentioned a subset. And it came back with like, yes, the first 4 measures of this solo are that scale. And then I gave it a different subset. And I'm like, well, maybe it's this scale instead, or this mode. And it said, yes, it is that mode too. If you're a classroom and you're worried about your students using AI for heavy analysis, they will not pull at that loose thread. They will not see the problem that you see as the subject matter expert. Keep that in mind. Okay. How are we doing for time? We're doing good.
We're doing pretty good. Robert,
Okay.
I wondered if you could, like, this has come out several times.
Yeah, what's up?
You could speak to, how much to disclose, whether or not you've used AI to write something. I mean, there's been discussion, in the chat about like when to disclose, when to say, like, that's just the normal process nowadays of doing things. And, folks are saying that some organizations require that you say that you didn't use ChatGPT to compose something. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
I do. Thank you. I can speak from my personal experience for using AI and GPT. I use it as a tool to organize my thoughts. I have never submitted anything created with GPT. If you are submitting something with GPT where you use it and you're using the wording, you absolutely want to cite it. You want to mention that this was created with AI. But like I said, as the expert in your matter, in your subject matter, you are probably going to find that it is a wonderful starting place, but you're going to end up and go back and revise it. All right, a lot. I saw one of my nephews had to do a philosophy assignment, asking AI to analyze philosophers and what they would say about something, and then do edits and submit that. And he didn't get the best grade because he revised it too much because he found the response was just not up to par. And he's second year undergrad. Okay. So yes, cite if you use it. I generally say don't submit AI work, okay, unless it's a part of your class and you're trying to like get students to learn the process, then they might want to submit it. Okay. So hopefully that gave you some food for thought there. Okay. If not, we can circle back at the end. All right. So let's see, more involved usage. And again, I'm not going to do the thank you, Dean, in the chat, APA style, how to cite GPT. Okay. Oh, a quick note about AI and citation, if you haven't run into it before, different angle of that. Not citing GPT, but GPT and citing. If you haven't found it yet, GPT will make up sources. If you're using it for creative process, it will cite things that don't exist. It will list texts as a source when it doesn't use that source. So you have to be careful with that. And as history instructor, personally, I like that. One of the first things I do in grading is I go to those citations. I go and check their sources to see how much research have they done. And that's a quick red flag to me of like, okay, something's amiss here. Yes, Jennifer, ghost citations. Thank you. Yep. Yep. So again, instructors, if you're worried about students submitting work, it depends on the kind of work we give them. And if we ask for citations, easy way to spot something. Okay. Can it cite the actual sources is a question. Yes, it can. It will get it right some of the time. But as Heather mentions, yes, always fact check. Yeah. Just like I said at the beginning, always know your sources. Same idea. Okay, more involved uses. And you can go ahead and do this right now if you want, or you can save this and use it later. Okay. So I've been mentioning you're the subject matter expert. You know your topic. Okay, I don't know how many times I've given the lecture on upheaval in pre-revolutionary France and revolutionary France. But I've gone to ChatGPT and I'm like, give me a topics list for this. And it will give me topics. I'm like, yes, I know that topic. I know that topic. I use that. I use it. Wait, I don't use that one. Oh, okay. The influence of, of X, school of writing on revolutionary thought. Or aftermath of French Revolution for females across Europe. And, so adding things like that, like, I put that in. I have female writers. I have, female historical figures in it, but I have not taken it to that thread of like, now let's see what happens after the revolution to this specific subgroup. And covered the subject often enough that I find something like that. And I'm like, oh, I have sources, and I get excited and my presentation is fresh for me. And in the classroom, that translates. They feel that. Let's see. So we see some agreement going in the chat for something. English, yes, one of the toughest lifts. Okay. English are using AI more and more in creating their essays. I find that it's obvious because level of language, absolutely. Sophistication, submission increases exponentially. It's difficult to prove they have used AI instead of writing it themselves. It is. It is. And that's one of the challenges that we have now in higher education. What I have seen, well, first off, easy to catch. In one thing that I did pre-AI in my history classes was I would have them do writing in class. They would analyze primary source right there, and then we would talk about it, and I would collect it. And then when it came time for the first major assignment, I'm like, okay, you remember all those things that I collected? I know your writing style. And the eyes get big, and then they realize, oh, Now, it is true that some people do better when they can compose in their own environment with a bigger time frame. But I've already put that in their head of like, oh, I might not want to roll the dice on this one. Other things I have seen. I've seen English professors allow AI if it is part of the established process and the student is submitting screenshots of what is the initial prompt that you put in, what did GPT give you back? What is the next prompt? How did you adjust your commands? And what did it give back? Okay. There will be a certain point where it's that leap of faith of like, what's their work, or that missing link of like, what's their work and what's AI's work. But you can get them to, use AI and make it transparent and get some work out of them that way. But I'm a big fan. I'm not a fan. I'm a big fan of having them do the work right in the classroom whenever possible. And then we can have that live interaction, and they learn that spontaneous thought is not a bad thing. Okay, just checking that. Johanna, yes, the problem is you can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. There is a limitation, yes. The AI detectors are not foolproof because they work on probability. What are the odds that this word follows this word, follows this word, follows this word? And while the odds can get, pretty slim that this is original work, it's still not foolproof. And this is why you come back to the idea of, okay, student, did you do this work? Because it doesn't look like yours. And you can see examples where, well, a student writes a paper that's beyond their level, and the instructor calls them in to have the meeting with them. And it's like, okay, so your paper is very good, but there's some points I'm not clear on. Please talk me through it. What do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? You used the word promulgated. We've had that one come up, and the student buckled because they didn't know the word promulgated, even though they used it in their paper. Okay, so let's see. So a few other interesting uses that I have found. Two that involve Zoom. Okay, so this is great for meetings, or if you're doing remote meetings, remote courses, whatnot. Okay, oftentimes in Zoom, the chat can be saved. And you would see 3 dots at the bottom underneath the message area. I don't think we have it active today. But when you see that, you can click that, click Save Chat, and it'll download a copy of the chat to your computer. You can throw that chat into GPT and analyze it. You can analyze it for themes. You can analyze it for any links that people drop into the chat. You can have it analyze emojis. What is the most common used emoji? You can analyze it for positive feedback, negative feedback. All right. Now, you will want to be careful, depending on what information you're going to put in here, because remember, you can save your chat or your GPT prompt and all the information. So you want to be careful that you're not putting in information, personal information of other people that you don't want it to have. You could take, using the same idea of taking information in and having it churn out different ideas. But we can go farther. How about the full transcript of a Zoom? What if you could take a Zoom presentation like this one, put it in and analyze it for themes? What if you could take a weekly office meeting, remote office meeting, put it in, and then when everybody has a chance to speak, right, it goes into the captions, and then you come out and you drop your chat into, or you drop your captions into GPT, and then you tell it to organize by theme. Because in those meetings, we get cross conversations going. Somebody brings up a topic and mentions their work on it. Then 20 minutes later, somebody comes in and mentions how they worked on the same project from a different angle. And we can have that put together. And now we can have things organized, not by chronology, not by speaker, but by topic. You can use it in shared docs if you want to take it to the classroom. Create a shared Google Doc. Give your students access to it. Let them type in their reflections there. And they can put them in anonymized, right? We don't have to have their name on the screen. Take those reflections, put them into GPT, get themes, get questions, get things like that. Okay. So now that kind of leads us into additional possibilities, right? What else is out there? What else can we do with this? I mentioned the staff updates. Okay. It's often asked about, what about quantitative data and GPT? Well, GPT does not interact directly, last I knew, things update quickly, with Excel files, but it will interact with CSV information, comma separated value. So if you work with Excel and you download your Excel file in CSV format, you can then put that into ChatGPT and have it analyze. Random example, I went online, found CSV about hurricane data from Florida for the last 20 years, dropped it in, and it analyzed and gave me the percent, the probability of a hurricane happening in a certain month in Florida. Image creation and analysis. You can use GPT to create images. It has issues. If you've played around with AI and imagery, you have found that extra, a five-legged moose, a three-handed otter, things like that show up. And now we've hit the problem of those images, if they've been put into the internet, well, eventually they come around and become part of the conversation. So when AI goes looking for like, well, what should this look like? And it sees a three-armed otter, well, maybe a five-armed otter is okay. Right. So limitations there. It can do analysis. It's getting better at analysis. The concept of, if I have a stack of blocks and I move this block, what happens? At first it would say the blocks will stand. Eventually, with the updates, it realized that, like, no, the blocks above will fall. But it took a while to get there. What comes next? The conversation continues. As I mentioned, GPT-5 will be coming out at some point. Other companies will be announcing their AIs. We've just gone through a major explosion of AIs because once GPT came out, a lot of other corporations who had been working with AI finally said, yes, we're working with it too. And yes, we have one. And here's what it does. And now it's available. And that's part of what we're living in right now. That idea of, there's so many, where do you start? So start with GPT, or if there's one you're comfortable with, start with that. Or if there's a corporation that you trust or feel already has all your information, start with them. All right, so I am ready to wrap up. I'll check the chat in a minute here, but before that, where do you go from here? Okay, so a lot of 2s and 3s. If you're looking for more, this session that you're in today will be repeated this Friday at 1 p.m. This is the first of 5 weeks of sessions. There will be sessions on pitfalls and potentials in the classroom, syllabus statement creation, using it as an assistant for your students, okay? And then creating content for your course using AI. And we'll have different presenters from FACT2 going each week. This leads up to CIT in Buffalo. There will be a pre-conference workshop that Tuesday. I'm not sure how long that's going. I do not have the details there. Through the CPD, there are also the PES webinars, professional education services. Okay, those are 2 for Tuesdays. There's one running this Tuesday. I believe it's going to be every Tuesday, but I'm not sure. Okay, but check your professional development announcements from your campus, or go to the CPD website and you can find information on those. The CPD, in fact, too, has sponsored AI courses. Okay, and I put the website in there. Okay, cpdeventsair.com/AI. Okay, and then if what you saw today is kind of what you're looking for, but you want more hands-on, when we get to CIT at the end of May in Buffalo, I'll be doing an in-person 75-minute workshop on Thursday at 8:45 in the a.m., where we take our laptops and we play with GPT and we see what kind of results we get, and we talk to each other about what we found, what we didn't find, and we get a little collective knowledge growth going on. Okay, so I'm going to check the chat. Before I do, I'm going to thank everyone for being here. I want to thank you. I want to thank everybody who helped out in the chat. I want to thank Chris Price. Okay, absolutely, and the CPD. Okay, so a lot of thanks going out here. So let's check the chat. But I will say this: if you've covered everything you want and you're good to go, I will say thank you, and please take 5 minutes of your day back. And I'll stay on for the next 5 minutes, and we'll take a look at the chat, okay? All right.
There was a question, Robert.
Yeah, what's up?
In the Q&A. What about the citation of AI-generated image content?
You know, I have not gotten to that. I imagine it's going to be, well, is Dean here? Dean has some great answers for us. I'm wondering if he has one on that. But I think it's going to be the same case of you're going to just tag it as, AI created. Let's see.
I mean, there's a lot in the chat, so I don't know.
There is, yeah. This is
if you want to
why
invite someone to just ask a question, we have 4 minutes left if someone wants to just.
Let's do that, because I see a lot of them were, answered. So let's do that. So if you have a question, please come off the mic. No need to raise a hand. We'll just pop in. I'm going to stop the share too.
Anybody have a question for Robert?
Robert, have you used Claude?
I played with Claude once, but I didn't go in depth on it. How about yourself?
Yeah, I've used it. I find it really interesting. It just comes up with a whole different response than ChatGPT, which is interesting because as you go from one of the tools to another, it's amazing just how the information comes back and it's different.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Which is, like I said, in GPT itself, different times, different response.
Yeah, exactly.
So, which I think is one of the interesting things about it. It is trying to give us, in the moment. It's not canned.
Right.
So,
right. Exactly.
Yeah. Anybody else? See things popping. Okay, we got thank you popping into the chat.
The other question that came up was the issue of giving students feedback. Like, so I mentioned that Brockport had the AI detector on for Turnitin in the fall, because they had the free version. Well, they gave it to free through the fall. And I had a couple of papers for students, but I was a small graduate class, and Janet asked the question, what if you're teaching a large class and it's not practical to kind of meet with students, where that comes back as obviously, written by AI. So I said, that's a larger issue, doing writing in large classes. So I don't know if you had thoughts about that.
Yeah. If you're doing a large scale class like that, you're running into one of the tricky zones. Just like if you're running an async class, you're going to run into a tricky zone. The large classes, you don't have time to meet with everybody. In that situation, I go back to the concept of what I was doing, is like doing the flex of showing them right out of the gate. It's like, look, I see your writing style. You've done work. So even if you don't have a chance to go through all their coursework beforehand, they're handwritten, or the things they've done in class, if you have them on record, they're going to be less likely to try and cut that corner, because now you have a sample to relate it to. So that would be, my first step. Okay. If anybody else has ideas, please share. Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking for the fall to maybe utilize more. I mean, not necessarily, within Brightspace, it's so much easier for students to do video and audio posts. Like, you don't need, what's it called, edit anymore as much, right?
Right.
Blanking on the name of it. What was it? The one where you could do audio and video posts?
In
just in general, I forget the name of the tool. I used to use it.
Oh, well,
the one where, what is it called? Someone help me out here.
Well, we've got Collaborate. We've got YouTube.
No, the one where you could do video and audio posts. Thank you. Someone's going to say it in the chat. Anyway, VoiceThread, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
But like in Brightspace, it's easy enough to do just an audio or video.
Absolutely.
So, requiring students to do one of those rather than just write it out. I mean, sure, they could do it in ChatGPT and read a script, but if they're reading a script, say, like, I don't want you to read a script. I just kind of want you to talk through it, right?
Excellent point. Yeah, free format. Yeah, just tell me your thoughts. Use video note in Brightspace. Just hit the button, record, go. Yeah, great idea right there. Let's see.
All right. Well, we are at 11. So thanks again, Robert. Thanks to everyone who's still here. And you'll be getting an email with the recording and Robert's slides soonish.
Yeah. Let's go with soonish. Yeah.
All right. Thanks again, Robert. I'm going to stop the recording.
All right. Thank you.